Do forgive me, I want to ramble a little. I'm laughing, but this isn't even remotely funny. Even though it could successfully be argued, it is in fact typical, and therefore amusing, which of course means we're going to talk about UK politics. I know you all think it's designated solely for the Moist Ski Live channel. Not today. I'm not making a video over there where it'll get 0 views. I'd like to get 1 view, and I'd like it to be over here, because I can't think of anything else to talk about, and this topic annoys me just enough to make a video on it. Well, it's in video format, it's just going to be a rant. 2 years ago, the United Kingdom and many other countries were plunged into lockdowns, the effectiveness of which you can debate amongst yourselves. I couldn't care less. We were all led to believe that by doing this, we as a nation were doing our part to make things easier for the NHS and help those who were immunocompromised and therefore at a higher risk of catching Corona-Chan-Koofness, or as others called it, the China virus. Whether it is that or not, again, go nuts. I have to maintain neutrality on purpose, because I don't want to be yeeted. You know this. Many sacrifices were made by the vast majority. As time went by, people got increasingly frustrated, because when things started to look better, or like they were improving, it did not. It took a massive dive, and we all paid a price for it. Millions were infected, hundreds of thousands have died. No one can say they looked good as a political figure for how they handled it. No one can. The argument of, were we prepared? But we didn't have the infections, so surely we weren't prepared because we didn't have it. But then when it hit us, it snowballed. Those arguments have been going on for quite some time, and quite frankly, they can go the way of the dinosaurs. Things that were introduced included masks, social distancing. Oh joy, because masks were renowned for being effective, as was social distancing. If I sneeze, how much of a berth do I get given? Contradictory advice was provided by medical experts, scientists, the CDC of course as well, a message that then was changed to parrot instead the government, which I found quite amusing. The Conservative government in the United Kingdom introduced a bunch of rules. These rules were implemented under a law called the Coronavirus Law, a law that was then assessed, reviewed and renewed whenever it was deemed appropriate. We, the United Kingdom, don't have what you call freedoms, so when a law is introduced, we as subjects of the Crown have to abide it. When you see protests in this country that go contrary to that, unless they are of a certain political leaning, they are dubbed conspiracy theorists and crackpots, extremists, far-right nationalists, which sometimes doesn't really actually apply to this. Come on. With the benefit of hindsight, I think we can all agree that is quite embarrassing. Now, continuing with what happened, because yes, we do have to recap somewhat, there were accusations starting to come out of politicians breaking the very rules they either voted for or they were a part of implementing. So that would be the ruling government implementing, the opposition, well, not obeying those rules. Some of the more notable casualties of this would include Dominic Cummings and his eye testing drive. Okay. Former advisor, by the way, to Boris Johnson, who has since gone on to absolutely pillory Boris Johnson. Jeremy Corbyn, former leader of the opposition, brochurist like no tomorrow, believes in the one true belief of pacifism. Well done with that, good luck as well. Had a house party which had more people than was permitted under the law. In fact, the list goes on quite extensively. Some of the more notable casualties of this, though, would include the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who was caught breaching his own rules to smooch an unpaid worker that he had appointed, who he is now living with both of their respective marriages going down the drain. And he himself is no longer Health Secretary because, yeah, for a guy who was championing the NHS, sneezing, sniffing on the job in many photo shoots with the NHS, while social distancing of course with a dripping nose, he broke the rules and had to go. He was for quite some time being protected by Boris, no doubt because Boris didn't handle this all very well, and because of that, he needed a scapegoat. That's what many of us believed. I myself believed that. It certainly looked that way. So with the loss of Matt Hancock to the backbenches, well, things just got interesting really, didn't they? His replacement, by the way, was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer under Theresa May, Sajid Javid, who has not been involved in a single controversy since. Matt Hancock, he's been doing his thing, making money, moving in with his partner, moving on with his life, abandoning all of those that loved him. What a quality stand-up man. A real benchmark for conservative politics. Actually, it's pretty accurate. Look at the Prime Minister. Accusations being levied left, right and centre about parties being had at number 10 Downing Street. For those who don't know, number 10 Downing Street is the beacon, the pinnacle of our politics. Oh yes. With the Prime Minister residing in a flat above number 11 and the Chancellor residing in a flat above number 10 because number 11's is bigger. Why they couldn't just knock a few walls down is a mystery to me. Let's ignore the interesting choice of decor that Carrie Symonds, Boris's now wife, chose, which cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to do a poxy flat up. Those accusations, those parties that is, led to a report, an investigation, conducted by Sugray. Many of us were waiting for the report, and I, during PMQ streams, during political recap streams, I explicitly stated we should not be trying to guess the outcome of the report until it is published. Only with that can we decide what happens next. Ian Blackford, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, decided to be, well, his usual self, and decided to breach parliamentary rules by calling the Prime Minister a knowing liar, someone that intentionally misled the House, which you're not allowed to do. So he was removed from the chamber on multiple occasions because he refused to back down. And in retrospect, it does raise an interesting question. In the Commons, you are not allowed to call another member of Parliament a liar. Yet, in this instance, you're about to find out something quite interesting. You see, Boris was in some of those pictures, at some of those events. So was Rishi Sunak, along with many other politicians. Right. The Sugray Report was supposed to be published, and about a day before, the Metropolitan Police decided, YOLO swag fam, we're taking that. You can have the condensed version that doesn't really confirm anything, and we're going to investigate all the actual claims and deal with it ourselves. Now, I could understand that, because if the law has been broken, they should have been involved in the first place. But at the 11th hour looked very, very sus. I can't be the only person that thought that. Well, before we get to the outcome of that, I'd like to now talk about what should happen if any politician received a fine from the police. If you are under caution, issued a fine, or under oath, you lied to the police in any way, and you are found wanting or guilty, and obviously wanting is sarcastic, do pay attention, you should, under the parliamentary rules and standards, resign for intentionally lying to the House of Commons. Those are the rules. It is ministerial code. The Prime Minister is no exception to this. In fact, there is no exception in Parliament to that. Now, you can try and dodge it as much as you want, but the reality is, if you are found to be a liar, get the fuck out of that chamber. Hand in your resignation, collect your P45, get on the dole, or collect some money from your really rich donor friends, and piss off, because you bring the office of Prime Minister, or the office you represent, or the constituency you represent, into disrepute. The Conservatives have enough issues right now, more recently with the Conservative MP being found of diddling a 15-year-old. Yeah, you guys have your own issues, your reputation's in ruin. You've got politicians from other constituencies defending that, one of which was from the very constituency I grew up in. And no, I was not best impressed when I found out that a Conservative MP from the area I grew up in was being a complete twat. The police had issued 20 fines. And it wasn't initially, let's say, revealed if the Prime Minister was one of them, until very recently when we found out, yes, he's getting a fine for his involvement, as is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, who has again his own issues right now with his non-dom wife status, a rather interesting tax loophole that has caused quite a storm and has, let's face it, ruined any chance of him becoming Prime Minister when I genuinely believed he could have. This will not help him in the slightest. His career is in tatters, and it is rumoured that he might want to step down, because he knows there is no going up for him anymore. This is where it ends for him. Both of whom, though, have decided, rather than doing the right thing because of the crisis in Ukraine, even though the party has 2 years left on their ticket before the next election, because we don't vote for the Prime Minister, we vote for the party, and their leader as Prime Minister, they've decided that the issue in Ukraine means Boris should stay in office, as should Rishi, to deal with the fact that he's increased taxes while making it look like he hasn't, because he's an idiot and doesn't understand fundamental economics, or mathematics for that matter. My view on this by the way, is as much as I love Boris Johnson because he's funny, and I will admit Rishi Sunak is a very interesting individual. Both of them are guilty and have breached ministerial code and UK law. Boris has become the first Prime Minister to receive a fine in office. That's not something to be proud of. The office of Prime Minister is supposed to be one of respect and dignity, and it's a tad tragic, really, when the only two in the last 20 years I can think of that had any dignity whatsoever were Gordon Brown and Theresa May, both of whom have, yes, made their mistakes before being Prime Minister, but as Prime Minister, let's face it, boring Brown and dancer May were hardly controversial. I know this isn't what I normally do on this channel, but I couldn't think of anything more interesting, and this pissed me off just enough that I wanted to rant and rave about it. You've had 12 years in office. Boris has been in office now for 3. Election is in 2 years. Why on earth would you stay in office when you know now your party is going to be screwed? And I don't really want Keir Starmer to win, because I still have no idea what he stands for. I really don't. But Boris, you've lied. You've been proven to lie now. The police have given you a fine because of it. That isn't the sign of someone who upholds the office that they are in. That's contempt. It's done out of spite and, well, arrogance. The issues in Ukraine are incredibly serious, yes, but our political system and our country is too. And what you have done is dunked on what the office is supposed to mean in favour of, yeah, but I'm needed right now. No, because of those police fines, the Sugray Report will now be published in full, which means we'll then finally know exactly what happened and just how guilty you are. Politicians right now are trying to find ways to defend you, your own cabinet ministers, by the way, all saying, yeah, but everyone needs a drink from now and then. People couldn't see their families for months. People couldn't go outside for months because they obeyed those pathetic rules. And they are pathetic. They were 100% pathetic. Oh, but they stemmed the tide. Right. Of course they did. And the mask was renowned for holding back the moisture in your voice. Fantastic. Anyone else notice that the shops didn't have lip seal because they went through the roof in sales? Personally, I think Boris Johnson should resign. I think he should because what he did was a breach of the rules. We have to obey them. We all had to obey them. And you didn't. You can't just hide behind the excuse of, but I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm afraid that's not acceptable. You are Prime Minister. You can't hide behind, but my assistant or my secretary or my, whatever they're called, advisors didn't tell me this. That is an excuse, and a rather weak one at that.